This is the second part of the three-part 12th video in this commentary on the book of Job. Job's conundrum concerned God, who was all just, yet who had allowed what seemed to be a great injustice, that is, inflicting excruciating adversities on a blameless man. This was but an echo of the most momentous, pivotal, and instigating conundrum of creation. That conundrum revolved around the question, what is man? In the beginning, Lucifer and all the spirits were faced with a humongous conundrum. The first chapter of St. Paul's letter to the Hebrews describes the occasion for the conundrum. When God brought the firstborn spirits into the world, he told them to serve Adam, a man. Yet what is man? Chapter 2 of St. Paul's letter to the Hebrews quotes Psalm 8. What is man that you are mindful of him, or the son of man that you care for him? You have made him for a little while lower than the angels. You have crowned him with glory and honor, putting everything in subjection under his feet. St. Paul goes on to say, now in putting everything in subjection to him, he left nothing outside his control. Everything, even the spirits, were to be subject to the man, the Adam. St. Paul identifies the man, the Adam. It is Jesus Christ, the Son of God and the Son of Man. When told to serve, there was a burning in Lucifer's thoughts concerning the fact man, Adam, was lower than the angels. Man was lower because of his body. The body would be a source of weakness for man. Following the urges of his body, man would soon prove himself corrupt and abominable. How could Lucifer, a being of such high dignity, be subject to a man, someone lower than himself? How could such a magnificent spirit serve man who would certainly and undoubtedly prove himself corrupt and abominable? It was a humongous conundrum. As a footnote concerning Christ's supremacy over all, including all in the angelic realm, see the end of the first chapter of St. Paul's letter to the Ephesians and the first and second chapters of his letters to the Colossians. Also see Matthew 28:18, where the risen Jesus says to the 11 disciples, he has been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Lucifer's decision, his choice in the face of this conundrum, was to refuse to serve. Standing upon the certainty about man, the fact that man was lower than himself and all spirits, Lucifer refused to serve man. If anything, man should be subject to him. He refused to serve, even though his refusal meant he must reject the word of God, that he would be contradicting the word of the Lord. He declared his refusal to all the spirits, a third of which followed him in refusing to serve Adam. To prove to all those who followed his refusal, indeed to all spirits, Lucifer would be an adversary, an accuser of man. He would be a Satan, the Satan to man. Hasatan would prove what man was. Man was corrupt and abominable. In the Garden of Eden, he had judged that he had been victorious in uncovering the abomination that was man, when he successfully tempted man to turn away from God, to become his own God, and to decide and choose for himself what was right and wrong. From that point on, man's decisions would be subject to the limitations of his puniness, the influences of his body. Man would die without wisdom. His body would pull him down like a millstone in the ocean. It would urge him and drive him to do abominable things. When Hasatan heard God say that there was a man, Job, who was perfect and upright, fearing God and avoiding evil, Hasatan stood firmly on his judgment. There could be no such man. This is why he had set his heart against man, against Job. All men were corrupt and abominable. Only if man were bribed and paid handsomely could this fact be hidden, could it be veiled. Yet for Hasatan, nothing was hidden from him. He knew, and he could prove, that any and all men were corrupt and abominable. He need only be given the authority. Even though after the test in the garden he had been given rulership over the world, he still needed the authority from God to afflict God's servant, the man Job. Once he had been given that authority, Hasatan went with great malice to afflict Job. It would be so satisfying, so self-confirming to unveil Job for what he was, what all men were. It would be a source of glee to all those who rebelled, the demonstration that Job the man was corrupt and abominable, in spite of what had been said by the Lord. Yet the testing of Job proved to be a spectacular failure for Hasatan. Job never cursed God to his face, as Hasatan had unequivocally judged he would do, and as Hasatan had confidently and self-assuredly stated before all the heavenly assembly Job would do. It was a piercing defeat for Hasatan, made even more so, since he had been proven wrong by a man, a being that Hasatan knew was lower than himself and all the spirits. Job had been faced with a conundrum he couldn't resolve, yet he turned to the Lord, and when the Lord appeared, Job did not curse God to his face. Rather, he humbly repented of his protestations. This man Job, lower than the angels, did, in the face of a tremendous conundrum, what the more perfect being, Lucifer, refused to do. When Lucifer was faced with a humongous conundrum, he refused to serve. He refused to serve the word of the Lord. In the book of Job, Hasatan, as the spirit of contradiction, had told Eliphaz, the eldest and most respected of the three friends, that all men would die without wisdom. Yet here was Job, who understood the foundation of wisdom, who quotes God saying to Adam, "The fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. To depart from evil, that is understanding." At the beginning of the book, the Lord had said Job feared God. At the end of the book, Job had done what the higher being, Lucifer, could not do. He chose to continue and embrace the fear of the Lord in response to the tremendous conundrum that faced him. Job humbled himself and repented of the evil of calling upon the force of anti-creation, the force of destruction to erase part of creation. Job's departure from evil was the embarkation point for his understanding. At this point, we are led to the delicious divine ironies of the book of Job that occasions divine laughter. Hasatan's response to the Lord's judgment that Job was perfect and upright, fearing God and avoiding evil, was that Job was a mercenary, a greedy, corrupt mercenary servant who would curse God to his face if his payments were withheld. The first divine irony was not only that Job proved Hasatan wrong, but in so proving it revealed the evidence against Hasatan's lie about man. Hasatan's refusal to serve man had been built upon a false foundation. The lie that the answer to the question, "What is man?" was that all men, no exception, would be corrupt and abominable. In standing upon this foundation, Hasatan had refused to humble his own dignity and serve man, refusing to serve at the word of the Lord. The second divine irony is that, standing upon his own perfection and beauty, Hasatan had proven that he was the mercenary servant. He had put his own perfection and beauty on a level higher than God. There he would judge the word of the Lord. He had been a servant up until what could be called creation conundrum, the conundrum that resulted from the Lord's words for the spirits to serve Adam. When told to serve Adam, Lucifer held fast to his gifts from God and would not offer them up in service to God. He revealed that in his stone heart, Hasatan was a mercenary, the mercenary servant. The third, particularly delicious divine irony is Lucifer had judged man lower because of the frailty of man's body. It would drag man down. Yet it was Job's body that would pull him toward the fear of the Lord when the Lord appeared to Job in the whirlwind. Any man facing the Lord in the whirlwind would fear in the Lord's presence. Job had even prophesied this when in chapter 9 he stated that if God were to appear, if it is a contest of strength, behold him. Though I am innocent, my own mouth would condemn me. It is not only the spirit in a man that fears the Lord, but the body that is fragile, and this fragility can help pull man to the fear of the Lord. These three ironies are only part of the delicious divine ironies that were set not only before Job, but for all of us and for the holy angels in heaven. The book of Job is a feast where the angels sing of the Lord's response to the question, "What is man?" They had purified themselves with their faith in the word of the Lord, and the resolution of the book of Job was a feast for their faith. But they knew that the fulfillment of the promise was yet to come. The definitive answer to the question, "What is man?" would occur when all men and all of creation would be redeemed. It was a joy to anticipate. And this feast concerning all that happened to Job was but a foretaste of what was to come. This is the end of the second part of the 12th video in this commentary on the book of Job. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. For who is like God?